Good evening, everyone. My name is Mahendra Shah, speaking from Bali. Let me first start with the world of doctors and the world of lawyers, and finally the world of media, which happens to be the most powerful of change makers for sustainable development. The lawyers have an oath: swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which would subject the oath taker to a persecution for the crime of perjury if she or he knowingly lies in a statement, either orally in a trial or deposition or in writing. That's the lawyers. Let's talk about the doctors. The doctors also swear to fulfill, to the best of their ability and judgment, the covenant. I will respect and hard-won scientific gains of those physicians in whose steps I walk, and gladly share such knowledge as is mine and those who are to follow. So I ask myself the question, why not an oath for the media? For example, swear to gather and report media information that is true, fair, honest, accurate, non-biased, and non-critical, both ethically and morally. It is the media for the masses that can help society to get information and form opinions and make a judgment and embrace actions regarding all issues relevant to creating a sustainable world in harmony with nature. Media has more power than political leaders, businesses, civil society, including scientists, all of whom strive for media coverage, often whining and dining the media people. And this power extends from the local to the global. Yes, media, you have the power and potential to be change makers for a sustainable world. Otherwise, sadly, you will continue to sell stories of death and destruction. We are awash with the tragedies of COVID-19, Ukraine war, floods drowning people, and droughts turning into famines. So a plea to the media: please awaken your humanity and create your legacy to save our one world and our one earth. I now will hand over to Yuri to tell us the background on Earth Odyssey, how we found it, what is its purpose, etc. Yuri, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Mahendra. Well, my name is Yuri Sanada. I'm from Brazil. I'm a filmmaker. Since 1996, my company, Aventuras Produções, we make productions about nature, about social issues, mainly about Brazil, other places in the world. By chance, I was making a scuba diving series. I'm a scuba diving instructor, and I visited Bali. I was invited by Dr. Mahendra to visit his resort. I stayed there for, I think, a week or some days, but it's wonderful. It really changed the way I thought about some issues in life. And then we started on that period, we stayed, and then after our conversations, we decided to start a movement, and that's Earth Odyssey. And the idea, from the beginning, has media, of course, in it, because we met because we are doing a media project, a TV series for Brazil. And the idea we had with Earth Odyssey is to be able to join people, like-minded people, and we can share through media, through film, through TV, through streaming, our experience in life, and engage young people especially, and prepare them for a better future to better this world. So that's how and why we started Earth Odyssey. Has been like 2 or 3 years now, maybe even a bit more. And what we've been doing is we've been very fortunate to have a lot of people. I mean, dozens of people came to us and share their experiences. And now we're transforming that into media projects like this webinars, this past 5 webinars. We're going to transform in a documentary for the Rio Plus 30 year. So we're going to be releasing this this year. And the idea of Earth Odyssey will progress and we continue. We have in 2024 an expedition in the Amazon. and we intend to be a presential event for our collaborators and people online around the world. So we continue trying to spread this good word and good experience and share with the world. That's more or less what we're trying to do with Earth Odyssey. And just completing what he said about the media, yeah, there should be a way. It's very difficult for media people to have a plea and acknowledge that they have an important role in society. I mean, nowadays, I'm coming from Brazil, and places like America, other places, they have this dispute now in politics. And media people are helping one side or the other, and often they're lying, they're spreading fake news. And that's very sad coming from this profession. Also, it's very dangerous because sometimes people get killed because of this fake news. People don't realize a little lie they read somewhere, and they give a lot of importance, and they spread over the news, can really change a society and can really become very, very dangerous, even murderous. So we have to be more careful, and we have to, as much as we can, try to influence this media people to try and really tell the truth as much as they can. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yuri.
Okay.
Jorg, you take over and please moderate the session.
Hello, Anna, as well, and Edwin, of course, from the US. So I will give a short introduction into the topic. I'm a filmmaker by profession myself. So I have been working in the media for 45 years now, mainly in public television, radio, and now I'm working with youth media and youth empowerment that is based on mobile phones. So I know quite a bit. I've studied media as well. So my background is in mass communication and making media work for transformation nowadays. So what we do, just a bit of a background there. We use media for storytelling, and with young people especially, we train them to become media people themselves, become storytellers using their mobile phones, and tell their stories, their perspectives as powerful as possible. And the theory behind this is that only the grassroots level media communication can really make change happen, because the mainstream media are all subjected to control by either big corporations, by powerful media people. You have seen the struggle between Elon Musk and Twitter, where they were talking about $4 billion buying a media organization and streamlining it. And it didn't work out, obviously, but the powerful and rich have vested interests to control media. You see this in Russia now, you see this in China, and wherever this happens, that you control perspectives, you de-enrich societies by making them less diverse, by making their knowledge less diverse. They will not develop and flourish as possible. And especially when you talk about the global goals and reaching the global goals, and making something happening on by changing the mindset of people on a global level, you need media that are not controlled by vested interests. But most of these media that we have at the moment are controlled by vested interests. And even in Germany, where we have a very good public television, I have seen this process of being very open to all walks of society to become media controlled by political parties. Although we are all paying for these media, they are controlled by the public, by us, by civil society, officially. In reality, the topics that they transport are controlled by certain interest groups. So we have this phenomenon all over the world, and now the EU has just created a legislation last week, or this week it was confirmed, that is taking control of the big social media corporations in order to limit their power and influence. In some countries, Facebook, for example, is the only source of independent political information besides government media channels. So we are talking about something that is so immense and immensely powerful that it is very difficult to break that monopoly. And so let's see how this EU legislation is turning out. And I hope one day in the US they will take control of Facebook and the other media organizations that are bound to be reprogrammed to take political influence. So when you change an algorithm, suddenly you create conflict in society. Suddenly you create misinformation in society. You create media and information bubbles. And in order to combat that, we have to build media organizations bottom up. And I show you a couple of things here that have to do with this media. So what we have created, can you see this media bike here, the Creative Velo? This is basically a mobile media and event studio, and we have created it to be outside in society, go to places, and be used by young people for communicating their stories. We have 3 of them at the moment. We will go to COP with them to showcase and make this a role model for other countries to take up. It comes with a digital media concept of learning to become a journalist, of activating certain storytelling abilities, and the power of performing on stage in front of other people. And today, this kind of education works very well. Today, I come from a primary school in Luxembourg, where 50 kids developed 12 films about war, about racism, and the power of shopping, or the power of unshopping. And it's incredible how films can really create some kind of impression that you cannot imagine by just using words or by using written language. So this media bike should become a role model for future storytelling events, and we want to produce it in large numbers eventually. The theory behind it is somehow connected with this model. I'm just showing you some. Actually, we have this model of change making. This is called the theory U, that has to do with seeing and sensing. And when you think about media, it's not media that you receive, it's media you create. And when you use media and cameras for seeing and sensing, and you open your heart and you become curious and compassionate and take the courage to actually speak out, then you can present and co-create and create change. That's basically the theory behind this concept. And this has been created by a colleague from MIT that have been working on theory for quite some time, and it's spreading around quite well. So this was my little take on the role of media and how you balance it between the powerful medias to be and the media that can actually make change happen, and that we are all longing for. Okay, so now I'm asking Malu uh, to say something about media from a different perspective. You come from Brazil, and you have been working in women's media for quite some time, and please and run the media organization there as well. So please tell us your perspective on by answering our questions that we have put out here. So, what is your opinion on the role of media in making a sustainable world happen?
Thank you so much
Okay.
for the words. Actually, I am not in the women's media. I am volunteer in the largest women's group. As journalist, I have covered Rio 92 as a reporter for Jornal do Brasil, which was one of the most important newspapers in the country at that time. I was 27 years old, so more than half of my life I have lived with the environmental learnings of the conference. And the important legacy of Rio 92 for me was that I took all these learnings forever till now. Like, for example, the participation of the NGOs in demanding more audacious positions on part of the government. So that's right where I was at Marina da Glória, which was like off-Broadway, the presidents of more than 100 countries at that time were in Rio Centro, the main convention center in Rio de Janeiro, about 40 kilometers away from where I was based, where I was working. So these learnings were forever with me. Like in 2002, for example, I was already in the PR industry, responsible for the World Petroleum Congress communication. The Congress theme was the oil industry and social responsibility. So we decided to put in Rio Centro, this main convention center, president of OPEC's, of International Energy Agency. Their president was here as well, the main leaders of the world in the oil and gas industry. So Rio 92 taught us that it's about dialogue, that it's important to dialogue. We invited, for example, Greenpeace to speak, gave them a voice, like we are talking about 20 years ago. So this was not usual, and we changed the whole oil and gas industry. After there were the events afterwards, like in Johannesburg and Madrid and all the other countries, they put both of the sides together. For example, on their Greenpeace spokesperson T-shirt, they had the words "ESSO sucks," and we gave them voice. We covered that. We wrote about that in our media, our digital media, our printed media, the newspaper we distributed in the event. So it's important to have a journalist in the team, and so that we can have other kinds of voices for him. And since then, I'm a member, actually, since I co-founded the Enchanted Valley project for environmental preservation, I have been member of the Brazilian network of environmental journalists. And we have been always trying to find paths to deliver the voices that started in Rio 92. Before that, in the beginning of the 70s, the world thought that we would have resources forever. And we saw in Rio 92 through the Agenda 21 documents, the roadmap for countries, states, and cities, and for professionals. So, because these conventions, these companies, these newspapers, these TVs, whatever, they are made of. They have journalists in their team. So we are the way, a path to communicate and to reinforce this. It's about people, and we see nowadays, for example, one of the main objectives of Rio 92 was to debate the global environmental scenario, specifically for sustainable development. So I worked for FUNBIO, which is one very important organization here, communicating John Elkington's event. The creator of the triple bottom line was not known at that time here. So we are always trying to put this information in the agendas for climate change, water conservation, alternative transport, ecological tourism, recycling policies, and that's it. We have, for example, now I have a column. It's enough? Spoke a lot?
No, I have a question.
Cool. Come on.
It sounds very ideal. My question is, you live in a society that is very divided, and how much of this opinion that you are creating and this information that you are creating is actually reaching the general public in Brazil? And are the media controlled by the government, or are you free to communicate?
The media is not controlled by the government, but we always try to reach new publics, not only the poor that are not reached by education, but everybody, so that we can spread this news. They don't read, they read what? WhatsApp, so we try to communicate in the WhatsApp. We must. There's a very famous singer here that says every artist should go to where the public is. Milton Nascimento. I don't know if any of you have heard about him. So we try to go if they are interested in earning money with recycling Coca-Cola's cans. We'll go there and deliver this message in the way they understand, so that everybody.
No, this is fun. This sounds very good. Maybe a last question. When you think about Rio 2032 and 2042, so 10 years and 20 years ahead, what will the media have achieved in
going ahead? What I think, George, did I understand you when you asked me about how I see the future?
Yeah, how do you see the future? So when Rio 30 years of Rio have passed, so what will happen in the future, and what role will the media play there?
I think what will happen in the future is about education. The more we make information about reach everybody, so the more we will develop and have a better future. Without education, there's no way.
So you bring education and media into one. So basically, media are part of education.
Yes, media is part of education, because when our media in the companies, we have lots to communicate. When we are media in the newspapers or whatever, we don't reach as much the amount of people we would like to. Even TV is not reaching, so but internet is. So what they like WhatsApp. I think the main way of communicating nowadays is WhatsApp in this country.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you very much for your contribution. I think we should move on. I know that Anna, who is here, she is short on time. So please, Anna, give us your perspective about the role of media in terms of making a sustainable world happen.
Yeah, actually, I have no idea what could work out. So we all figure out in one or another way what happens. We have this webinars to align, to exchange our values and how we work and what works and what not. So this is already a co-creation and yeah, alignment, so to say, of perspectives and agreeing on goals we want to reach, like the SDGs. Not everybody agrees fully with SDGs, for example, but in general, we could say we want to live on a healthy planet or we want to survive on a healthy planet. I really like what you are doing with the youth critical thinking, teaching about or giving an opportunity to experience journalism and reflect on it in your peer group, and also reaching out maybe to a broader network to get more feedback on it. All of you are doing amazing things. So it's actually, I don't have a TV, so to say. I really watch maybe every 6 months. I look at the news. Read sometimes newspapers. Mostly I go to the internet and really hear what people say and more join discussions and with references and so on to get a picture actually what's going on. So my approach always was one human to another human to another human. And if this is working with WhatsApp or another medium like film, social media in general, then it's a great opportunity. If it's not too random, if you still can encourage with most of the participants a dialogue, it should be very active from my perspective, so to say. It should be a living discussion where we really can step into the shoes of somebody else's perspectives or context to really engage and build values on top of it. To create a culture, we can really do something fast, so to say.
But maybe yeah, and maybe Anna, you say something about your background, and then just one sentence, and what you think why this idealistic position of media becoming a value sharing system is not working right now, and how do you want to achieve that it works?
Yeah, so I worked, let's say, 10 years with Impact Journey, which was basically social media, a group of social entrepreneurs with a social capital approach. So we connected people, bonded people, and bridged also groups and communities and institutions and all kind of people and linking into the power. So you have all levels of bonding, bridging, and linking. And through the discussion, I really, if you don't have a real talk as a real person and really engage, so to say, like you engage in a face-to-face dialogue, I feel, or at least make this, if you show a film, you have a discussion afterwards with kind of, or yeah, it should go further, so to say. Sometimes that's the most powerful through friendship, basically. So for me, the world is so complex with so many good ideas and so on. How shall I survive? So my take on this was, I want to be the best friend in the world to everyone, even to my whatever. I don't need to like the next person, but what can I do to be a really good friend and to be fair in this world to the planet, but towards nature, animals, anything, so to say. That's my first question, my first thing I do. And then everything, it's like a vortex, it's then developing, you know. If you're honest and very authentic, then you build up trust, you build culture with your peers and colleagues at work or university or wherever you go, or you working with youth. So yeah, I think that's a basic thing we should really work on ourselves first, and then really like engage as much as you can.
So you are positive about what the role of social media and the digital world that is able to connect individuals in a meaningful way, so that they can connect and really develop.
Yeah, if it's in
a
parallel,
better world
I mean,
together.
I don't make a distinction between on and offline. So for me, it's one world. We engage and we need to learn how. Yeah, and also we need to learn how to do it, and your work is very important in this case, so to say, how to produce content in a way that's really ethical, and having a discussion around it, and how to learn to serve online, so to say. Critical thinking is, of course, a part of being a journalist, or getting having a mindset of a journalist, let's say. Yeah, that's.
Okay, thank you, Anna. That was very meaningful as a background. Actually, I just was in the school, and we asked the children to look into their phones and see how long they stayed online every day, and the least time of all the group of 40, 50 kids was online for 4 hours per day, and the person with the longest time was 12 hours per day. So already people are living in the digital sphere, and the big question is, how do we keep them alive as critical beings, so that they are not subjected to some kind of entertainment, but that they become, still keep their independent position alive and stay alive as emotional beings. So that's a big question.
One sentence for me, it's always putting motherhood, not the mother, but motherhood in the center of a society. So this nurturing mindset,
So I know, thank you very much, Anna. So maybe Robert, you are next, and you say something about your professional background and why you think that media are playing an important role in making and shaping the world.
Thank you, Jörg. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Robert Schramm. I'm currently based in Porto di Ascoli in Italy, and I'm here to connect local networks. And it sort of ties into the last question. I think it's very important to be in a physical space together instead of meeting only online. So the last 25 years, I worked as a project coordinator in utility. And the last 10 years, I decided to follow my calling and passion. So I'm now working as a coordinator for several transition platforms to sort of bridge the gap between the current degenerative systems and towards regenerative systems. So my opinion about the role of the media is that I feel media has a great part to play in showing the connections between the different sectors of society, and also how to make visible how positive and negative consequences are unfolding. You know, often you see mainstream media focusing on negative news because that sells, and much less on positive developments. Currently, we are experiencing a downward spiral, right? We see current systems falling apart. And at the same time, there is a sort of positive counter energies are coming together. And there's an upward spiral beginning to evolve. And I would really see media play a part in it to also make that spectrum visible, because it can give people hope and inspire people to sort of step into their own empowerment and see what can be done together to live more in balance with nature for us and current generations. How to overcome the obstacles? Well, I think also in media and communication, that's one of the 13 sectors that are all equally important. You know, we have 13 different sectors in society. Media is one of them. However, big media is, of course, one of the dominating sectors, just like governance and economics is. And billions of profits are made there. I think there's a lot of commercial interest, too much. A lot of commercials are shown on TV, which is feeding our consuming system, which is in fact degenerative to our sustainable way of living. And I think media can play a big ethical role in the future to show us examples of regenerative lifestyles, and also to educate people and give some good examples how we can live more in balance. I also feel that the big profits of these big medias should sort of be capitated, or a percentage could flow to regenerative projects and platforms to support change makers. So that's one thing. For myself, as a role in the media, I think I observe a number of things. People are awakening and people are worried. And I also see this counter pressure of positive anti-energies to rebalance matters building up. So I know as a fact there are about 1 million active protest groups, organizations and platforms worldwide. So I would love to see and be a part with my role as making these energies visible and use media for it. I'm currently a host at a podcast station. So we're interviewing, it's called Future Now Radio. We're interviewing change makers, thought leaders, and also people who have started regenerative projects just to share it with the world. Because a lot is not visible. And if it's not visible, yeah, how can we do something tangible with it? So I think I want to expand on that the coming years as an interviewer, and also to give interviews. And to overcome our challenges, I think follow ethical guidelines on news productions, learn to open our membranes and step out of our silos. I think we need to acknowledge our dogmatic patterns, and also we need to acknowledge, or are able to acknowledge, all 13 sectors of society are equally important, and let that be highlighted by the media. So, and to finish, I think looking back from a point in the future, I think the initiatives will have achieved raising consciousness via conscious media channels, redistribution of profits and taxes. I can see a lowering of the illusionary borders in our minds, and finally showing where the regenerative action is. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Robert. This was really insightful, and an idea comes to my mind when we think about phenomena happening at the moment. We have to do with exponential growth of problems, of solution spaces as well, and for me, the media, and it sounds like you're hoping that your hope goes in the same direction. The media are able to exponentially connect people and ideas, so that they can actually sort of stay connected with what's happening now, stay synchronized with reality. Without media, we are not able to do that. And we will probably lose out against these powers of exponential growth everywhere.
Yeah.
So I would like to have David now. David, please say something about your background yourself before I introduce you wrongly, like Malu.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, my name's David Boville. My background is originally in science, so I was an immunologist and spent 9 years in medicine, and then moved into storytelling and education in medicine, using technology, video, sound, deliberation, and was gradually migrated further and further into storytelling. So I began to work in theatre and the arts, and I spent 10 years working with arts. I set up 2 theatre companies, worked with another couple, working with sensors, technology, dance, in all sorts of urban and kind of rural environments. And currently that path has taken me more and more to be interested in questions of how people come together, interact with each other to take action. And that's what governance is or should be, the science of people coming together to take action. Yeah, that's my background. I'm a programmer as well along that journey. So I spent 20 years learning all about technology, programming, law, blockchain, all that kind of nerdy stuff. When I look at media in that context, my personal journey and in society, I think the role of media, so until now it's been very mixed. It's done a fabulous job of bringing nature into people's homes, into their hearts, into their living room, but then it's left them there sitting on the sofa. Okay, so the business model, the economic model of advertising funded media and the passivity of the audience are fundamental to the institutions that the 100-year-old media has evolved around and been globally very dominant. And while there have been lots of interesting experiments, citizen media, community media in theatre, art, video, radio, and so forth, it's a little scratching, a little dent on the surface of mainstream media. So on the other hand, the power of some of the nature history documentaries, classically David Attenborough and what have you, to bring these stories to a global and larger audience is on the hugely positive as well. So it's mixed. When I look at the obstacles to, if you like, improving that situation, to overcoming the impediments to the undeniable existence of the transformative power of storytelling, film, art, and media. I think the main thing is that we need to kind of create new forms of media which embed the ability for people to make decisions, to support, to get actively involved. And that's what I'm passionate about in terms of creating a new form of social theatre in which there are physical hubs that people can go to, people can take part online, and we can connect conversations in new way where we bring artists into discussions that involve music, dance, sound, but with the capability that technology and the facilitation of these events can afford us in terms of empowering people to take action so that it becomes more live and alive. And I think we can make compelling, powerful experiences for people precisely because we empower them to be able to take action. And that so far we have kind of failed to integrate the elements that enable that new form of media. But it's become easier and easier and easier to do. And it feels to me like there's been like 20, 30, 40, 50 years of experiments of people feeling their way towards something. And that's something I believe post-pandemic, in the coming 5 years, 10 years, we have the possibility to do things that certainly I've always dreamed of. I think the third question, we were asked to look at 3 questions, is to imagine looking back from sometime in the near future, and imagine what that would be like. And I would like to see, and I personally believe we will see, a society in which this form of social theatre, this new form of cinema, which people will go to, and where they will experience media, story, emotions about the future, will be a bit like a merger between science fiction and politics, where we will be able to imagine together alternative futures, argue, dance, laugh, then rethink how we will express our power, our votes and our money, and we will use those experiences and seek out those experiences to affect the world and the society we live in. And I think that technology and that form of social theatre will be with us. Hello, are we all frozen?
No, it's fine.
I'm here.
You can carry on.
And I think looking back, I think everything that we're all working on and working towards now, especially if we can learn to work with each other in more productive ways to build better ways which people come together, make decisions, better ways for people to take actions, improve the quality of our storytelling. I think we'll see these early struggles as a baby stepping stone towards that future.
Okay, thank you very much, David. It sounds really great, and I would like to learn more about the social theater theory that you are referring to, because now I can imagine that something is going to happen and make change possible by using virtual methods of increasing our ability to imagine, for example. And imagination is essential to actually take action on something that hasn't happened yet, but will be happening soon, like climate change, for example. So
yeah,
we have
and
this
it's
gap
not rocket
between,
science.
No, it's not rocket. No.
And people who are good at facilitating the gold dust, giving the right visual feedback to people, the practice that performers have in interactive playback, boal theatre. There are elements everywhere. The technique and theory of documentary filmmakers is very important. We just need to mix these together and produce them well.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. This is great. And maybe this is a good a moment to ask Edwin to come on stage, because Edwin is a documentary film producer from the US. For many years, he's been active in this field. We are working together. We have been working together, and now we have co-created Youth for Planet US. But maybe talking from your experience and your background as a communicator, Edwin, please say something about the options for a sustainable future.
Thank you very much, Jorg, and very nice to see all of you. Some very insightful comments so far. Yes, as Jorg mentioned, I've been a documentary producer for over 20 years now, and mostly in historical documentaries. The first company I helped put together, we did mostly historical documentaries, the ancient empires, the history of religion, the stories of European and Western history. Did some of those for History Channel here in the US. And then I put together another company. I put together a company after that to focus in on just any kind of great stories. I was looking to tell any great stories. Many of them tended to be music documentaries, telling the stories of some of the greatest musicians, or a lot of the musicians, some unknown and some not so well known, which I think that's a different subject, but music, like the media, it is part of the media, is a very powerful influence and can overcome a lot of barriers. And I think, looking at the idea of what is the role of the media, the media now has become such a word that is not specific enough. It's too general. And it occurred to me that 1992 was about the time the internet was really starting to be accessed by the average citizen. And what's happened since 1992, and how much did that play in foiling the efforts of what happened at Rio? Certainly, as David pointed out very insightfully, it's been a mixed bag for all media. And certainly the internet has democratized information in a way that was not before 1992, which has been a good thing. When I was growing up here in the US, we had 3 major networks that gave us all our information. And we trusted them for the most part. And I think that trust was viable for the most part. But the democratization of media that has occurred since the internet has been a good thing overall, in my opinion. But what we see today, especially with, as Jorg addressed, the various social media channels, is algorithms that shove us into silos. And Robert mentioned the silos and encouraged us to get out of those silos. What we see here in the United States is that people are looking for those silos. They're not willing to get out of them. The people who deny climate change and who are opposed to the SDGs here have plenty of places to go that they would call media that are giving them misinformation and spreading untruths. They are not following Mahendra's oath at all. And we are siloed here. So the people that I know who have supported Donald Trump and support who are or climate change deniers are finding plenty of information on the internet, and they are going into those silos willingly, and they do not want to get out of them. And I think the challenge for media, us as those who want to take Mahendra's oath, is to find a way to break those barriers, to be able to communicate to them in a way in which they will understand, in ways which they will understand or agree with. I think Anna mentioned something about not everybody agrees with the SDGs, but we all want to live in a clean world that's sustainable. Whether you agree with the Sustainable Development Goals, I think everyone, even those who are in those silos, would say, yes, we want things to be sustainable and to go on. They just don't understand how bad things are right now and how dangerous they are. And how do we break that barrier with those people? I think that is the biggest challenge. Going to the second question that you asked us to address today, is to find a way to break those barriers and reach those people who are willingly in those silos. So it's a big challenge. Looking back from the future to how that can be achieved, I will say I don't know. But I think the reality is that we do have to have at least not everyone is going to come on board to help resolve these challenges. But if we can have enough people connecting in enough ways, things can be changed. And this may be a small and maybe trivial kind of example, but I know when I was growing up, cigarette smoking in the United States was prevalent. It was everywhere. You walked into a restaurant and you were inundated with cigarette smoke. You were on an airplane, you were inundated with it. They had smoking and non-smoking sections, but that was a joke because the smoke went everywhere. It didn't matter what section you were in. But the campaigns were that the media primarily helped push forward to eradicate smoking, and not eradicate it, but to make smoking prohibitive in public places, took many years, but eventually it was successful. And most people now live with it, whether they're a smoker or not. Smoking has not been eradicated, but they now live with the idea that they cannot pollute my air with their cigarette smoke. And I think that was, in some ways, a small victory, but it's one that we can be optimistic about for future change in cleaning up this world. I remember when I was leaving a job in California in 1990. California had just made it a law that smoking would be prohibited in restaurants and all public places. I left California to live in Massachusetts, and those laws weren't in Massachusetts yet. And we were back again in restaurants filled with smoke. But it wasn't too many years after that it became a national thing. Every state began to pass laws like that. So if we can break these silos and get people to see the benefits of doing what is necessary to create a sustainable world, I think it is possible, and we can take optimism from that.
Thank you very much, Edwin. This was a great example, the smoking campaign. I was part of this anti-smoking campaign in Germany, and I have quite some experience on making this a success in the public domain by educating people. And I know, Margitta, you have been working and are working in education with digital media a lot. Maybe you say something from your perspective, how media can actually help education and learning, and vice versa. So education is the context and basis for the media use.
I think media are educating people with information. And for my part, I'm not a media specialist, but education specialist. I'm coaching for people who are to teachers and so on. My field is pedagogic and change management. And so I think maybe I can make a bridge to Edwin, that the problem is that people stay in silos,
yes.
in a silo.
Yeah.
It's also an education thing, and what I'm trying is to enable young people, old people to reflect about themselves and find their own values, because the values are guiding our actions. And so everybody has values. Often it's not conscious, but so we all want to be in harmony, and we want to have good dialogues and love and so on. So to feel that, and then be conscious about the own decisions. And I think there is not enough. We are often take in what we get to know, and then we are very fast on making judgments, or we are very anxious, and so we go into a silo because we are safe. And I think people who are in the silo are very anxious, and it's between the silos sometimes there are like connections, and I think it would be good to take people together in dialogues, and a good dialogue is only with people with different meanings and opinions, different opinions. So this could be something to do on a very pragmatic level. Have a lot of dialogues, and dialogues in the sense of have the possibility to say real what you think, and then I'm a facilitator of a special dialogue. It's about from how do you say? It's from David. He's in the
David Bohm.
David Bohm. Yeah, it's a dialogue where you don't want to. It's not a discussion. It's a special form so that everybody can really say what the opinion is, and you can research about it together. So that's one thing. And the other thing, I had the idea, journalists, maybe when I go to buy something, I look at the product, and I'm helped by this special quality systems. This is biologic or something like that, and then I believe in it. I think, oh, I take this product because I know this is safe. And it might be the journalist should have also 5 stars or 3 stars or something, if we can trust in them or not. So for me, it's very difficult to find something where I say, oh, that's the truth, because there's such a lot of manipulation now. Okay, that's all what I wanted to say, and thank you for listening.
Well, thank you, Margita, for pointing out the role of media for education, and especially for education to really create meaningful media. I think this is a very important part, that you actually learn about different perspectives, and media can actually bring the world to you, so that you have more diverse opportunities in thinking. But
I have another idea. One more.
Okay.
I think we should create courses or workshops for journalists to education. Not education is to have not to educate journalists, but to have dialogues with journalists, so that they can reflect more about their own role, maybe.
All right, my question to David. David, you talked about smoking, which was very successful, a 20-year effort. There was a report out today, which said yesterday, I think, it will take 132 years globally until women become equal to men in decision-making. And in Asia, it's 168 years. Do you think we have that type of time ahead of us to make the world sustainable? So why aren't we just as excited about climate change through documentaries, about biodiversity extinction? There are so many, but the message is not getting through. Can you comment on that, David?
Yeah, the future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed. So in many spaces that I've been in, like medicine, it's pretty well dominated or led or run by women now. It'll take time. It's not fast enough. My concern isn't about statements about global statistics describing the history and the present, but it's about what we can do. So, for instance, in this discussion here, the involvement of diverse groups, I didn't participate in that. How we do that, tools we can build to make sure that in every discussion we have a good gender balance and a good age balance, younger people involved, and embodying that in. So I think it starts with us in building the values you talk about, Mahendra, into the way we govern our own projects, and we scale our own projects, and we can provide these tools to other institutions to make it easy for them to adopt them, whether they be political parties, whether they be companies, whether they be co-ops. But I think we're all failing to do it, and we can all do better at that. And some of that involves getting really smart and ruthless about building tools that are legal governance tools that embody that. It includes media here, like how media companies are owned and structured, how documentaries assess the opinions of people in their communities. So I think there's a positive future, but I think everyone's being a bit lazy about transferring the blah, 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 as Greta says, to the way that institutions are run.
Thank you. It was meant for Edwin, but thank you for the answer. Edwin, I wanted to ask you that question. David, sorry.
Well, it's a challenging question. I mean, I may turn the question back to you. What is, you said 132 years. I'm not sure where that calculation comes from, but what do you think are the most, certainly it is a challenge and a huge challenge. What are the greatest obstacles to women gaining equality in the world today? That's a question I would ask. Is it because of religion? Is it because of governments? Is it a combination? Is it because of, in the Western world, still we have women who have the same jobs as men, but are not being paid near what the men are being paid in medicine, as David mentioned, and doctors, lawyers, they're all underpaid compared to their male counterparts. Is it it's a systemic problem, isn't it? Because it's inherent in the system that women are made less equal and are oppressed in many societies. So that 132 years, I wonder how that's calculated. And then if that is the calculation, those people making that calculation must have some idea about what needs to be overcome, so that even in 100, I could question it in 132 years that it might not even be solved if things are not changed in many parts of the world, especially where religious totalitarianism is very prominent.
So I think we cannot resolve that issue, because for me it sounds a bit fantastic. 132 years, it's something that is like the weather. We cannot forecast the weather in 20 years. It's impossible. But what we can do is actively create meaningful media and context and learning and education that may lead to more equality, that may lead to something that is closer to what we want to create as a society. But of course, there are so many obstacles, and media are soft tools, not hard tools. They are not money, they are not laws, they are not governments. So they can only interact with people and create ideas in people's minds. And then people have to take it up. And if they don't want to take it up, then they don't do it. That's all. There's no direct connection between saying something, giving an information, and people acting upon it. That's a fantasy. It never works. So when you think about manipulation, this is happening on a different scale. It's in a different realm. But I want to call on, because we talked about the systemic aspect of it. I would love to have Heiner speaking on this, because he is a system thinker like Mahendra, and he is from a different background than all of us, and a media person as well, and working in the realm of sustainable development for so many years. He should have maybe a different answer to this challenge and question. Heiner.
Perfect. So I'm Heiner. I'm in Berlin. With my professional background, it's already difficult. I have no single profession. I had over 5 decades many professions, and I started, or maybe I'm now a concerned generalist. I started with earth sciences and ended through education to media. So in media, I learned to be short, 1:30, and to really be to the point, not even having time to prepare, like in television. So I'm activist, journalist, advisor, and I hope I one day become a good media theorist and educator. So when I thought about this question, I remembered Marshall McLuhan saying, the media is a message, but it was a mispublisher. He wrote the media is a massage. It is manipulating. It is really making us not connecting with a person directly, like in the ancient times, but we have something, the media as in mediation between us. And then this challenge is how to negotiate the different meanings, the different feelings, the different sensations when there is something in between us and we're suddenly thrown into an international global environment. So I think beside what we call visual demagogy or Goebbels with the radio, we have now media demagogy and fake news, and we have to really see what is happening there. I was in '94 looking into the future of possible world press centers, or with Kofi Annan in '97, vision, television, cultural needs, cultural rights, cultural responsibilities, how the national media station, how private stations are taking over. So we are confronting here a really big challenge to what we call with the European Commission a humane information society. There's a glut, there's a deluge. And the question is, can we do something about it? And I think we can, but we have to really deeply question, can we create overview and orientation? Can we find concrete models and artifacts to help us negotiate? Because without that, there are these people who are manipulating us. And that's why I work with Youth for Planet, filmmakers like people who are creating stages in theater are space creators. And we have to create many connected shared spaces. And this is actually scenography. And so then we get really what David mentioned, all the arts, all the performative arts, all the creative arts involved. And my work is really in this field to really help young people to make concrete models of your position, your perspective, the frames of references. And they called it worm's eye, fish eye, bird's eye, group eye, general education eyes, general eyes, or bird's eye, or God's eyes. So what I mean, we have to see what's happening in this communication. And media goes to communication, that we need to negotiate what someone means, in which context, where, how is it value loaded, where are the blind spots and the deep drivers. And there I feel what we need in the future, that is the third and last question, we will need to have in 20, 30 years, a new form of negotiation and mediation and what we call multi-track diplomacy and peacemaking, that we look with this structured dialogic design, what is really meant? What are the deep drivers? What is influencing what? And that is actually the work I'm very concerned about. How do we go this fake news of blurbs, of terms without meaning, which is called plastic words in German. So a word without any meaning, or so many meanings, but everybody can mold it and like plastic form it on its own. So I believe by using concrete models beside systems. System thinking is very good, but humans are model-making animals. We can create tangible, immersive, concrete models, even scale models. You see, I'm a map and model maker. We have lost in our science the real touch with the environment. So we see, say a term has to have a referent. And this is lost through the modern media. And when I remember this session with Kofi Annan, when he became Director General, it was called Vision Television, Cultural Rights, Cultural Needs, Cultural Responsibilities. People were looking for their turf, their channel in their national boundaries, but not with these open ideas of what we had in mind 94 with the World Bank on a new media or press center. So I feel we have incredible power with filmmaking, with telling young people, and this will be the fact in 30 years, that they have learned that they are in-betweeners, conveyors of the whole picture. They keep in mind not only the story, but also the stage, who is at stage, and how the finance is going. So I think we only have one chance to make things concrete and not blame certain people like politicians, media, industrialists, or whatever, but really come to work together and give an eye and an ear and empower. And that is actually what I feel we should do by revisiting models and starting in kindergarten and sandboxes and not getting lost in Babylon and islands of different meanings. I think I'm behind the time.
Heiner, one question. When you talk about models, you are talking about imagination and visions. Okay. Then maybe my last question to you is, when you say we haven't achieved yet to create this imaginations and these imaginations, and already 30 years ago the Director General was dreaming of media in the hands of the people or the United Nations. What can overcome these obstacles? Because obviously there are powers against the media in the hands of the people.
Yes, sure. Every powerful tool has some people who want to grab it. We have to understand that this massage and stopping us and taking us apart and creating boundaries between us is part of including an artificial barrier between us. And that's why Cousteau said, there are no walls in nature, only in the minds of some people. We have to really teach young people and intergenerationally with mentors to make things concrete and not getting lost in numbers and figures and images, but really multimodally bring the sciences systems and the cultural systems and the cultural expressions together. Just read the stuff from UNESCO.
Okay, so thank you very much, Heiner. Actually, I tried to get Yusuf Ali on board to say something, but his microphone doesn't work, and he has written something in the chat. I read it to you, and he's saying, yes, media has a great role to play to focus some important problem prospects of a nation or a community. And in the developing countries, and I believe you are from one of them that you call developing country, where people's voice is marginal, this is especially true because governments often try to hide their inefficiency and corruption. And this is true. The media can play the role of uncovering wrongdoings of governments and of course of companies as well. And that's one of the reasons why these media outlets are so controlled, because now I'm thinking of Julian Assange now still in custody and now being transferred to USA because he didn't say anything against the US, but he offered space for people to publish something that was damaging the public image of the US. So this was the reason for him to be in jail for now many years and without a trial yet. No, so it's more there you can see the actual powers working when you are against a kind of a very powerful imperium. You have no chance in raising your voice, or because then you will be silenced eventually. So Mahendra wanted to say, Yusuf, sorry, it's impossible to get your. But now, Mahendra, you raised your hand. You wanted to say something here.
First of all, just to Yusuf, it's not fair to say developing countries have this inefficiency and corruption. This is a global issue, and it's hidden, but it's a totally global issue. I wanted to go back to Edwin. Edwin, we deviated talking about 132 years. That's a thesis written by somebody and was reported in by World Economic Forum. But that's not the issue. In Europe, it took 30 years before women could enter and have equal pay, equal positions in law, medical, etc., etc. 30 years. Here we are, the richest area, the most educated area, a region with 95% of political leaders are men, 75% are parliamentarians, 80% of business leaders, CEOs are men. And the point about women is simply, my thinking is there can be no sustainable development without the full participation of women. Why? Simply because nature has endowed women with empathy. And we need empathy if you want to heal the human world, and we need empathy if you want to heal the nature world. So that's one point I wanted to make, or maybe you have a reaction. But the second point I want everyone to bear in mind, that we have top-down media in this world. Media is more powerful than any political president or anyone. They all strive to be in the hands of the media. So we have top-down media. If we start to build media from grassroots to the top, we don't have the time. We don't have the time ahead of us. The only time you have is the lifespan of the youth alive today. Because by 2060, 70, if we don't make any difference, climate catastrophes, biodiversity extinction will catch up with us. So we really need to be proactive, and it's a pity that our efforts for this webinar didn't attract any media person apart from those of us who work in media a little bit. And that's such a shame that 750 million people in LinkedIn and not one responded to that. And I think it says something about them, because Rio Plus 30 is worth celebrating, because the only act in town is Agenda 21 and the Rio Principles of the Earth Summit. Thank you.
May I say something about this? You, Mahendra, I think you should you have to be that negative about the development, because the discussions and social development is happening in so many different spaces, and we don't have insight into all the different spaces, and the space that we have created here is only one of them. And I think we had a very high-level discussion here, and that has to do with maybe not the direct participation in certain media roles. No, I'm very much involved in media discussions in many realms in Germany and globally, but I wouldn't say I'm in a powerful position in media and a deciding position. Like we are all not in a deciding position, but people in a deciding position, they would tell us how difficult it is to take a position outside their media outlet as a journalist, as a take an independent position, because they are part of a system, and they always have to speak from this side of the system. And Malu said something very interesting. Now journalists are working in all the different parts of society, in companies, as speakers of governments, of companies, of social entrepreneurs, and so forth. So we have at the moment already a global compound, a global media space where discussions are happening. We are not always aware of that. We are not always part of this. But there's a humming and sounding and discussion already happening. And actually, this is my hope, that out of this humming and debating and dialogues, there comes some kind of meaningful perspective when people synchronize and actually come together on a clear topic, on the same values, because they have decided to share their values and go on the same level of understanding how the world works. And I think science has played a very major role in bringing us people together and create a kind of common understanding of how the world functions. And of course, films about science and films like the ones that Yuri and I make are part of that. Now, you create an understanding how nature works. You create an understanding how scientific reasoning is working. This has all a very great influence on the public discussion and the mindset of people globally. But we shouldn't overestimate this. All these developments are taking time, and they are not happening in the realm of media. They are happening in society, and media is part of the influence. And there are so many more influences that are actually making people behave in a certain way, that media can only play a decisive but a very limited role. And I don't want to go into detail about psychology of media and how people actually perceive what is reported to them by through information. This is all a different discussion. I think what we did today in the 90 minutes is really opening the floor for the options that we have as informed society, as civil society, as media people, as creators and scientists, to actively educate a public by actively bringing out certain information that help to shape a discussion and help to shape a sustainable planet. And it's an ongoing discussion. There will be no limit to it. There will be no success. There is no global goal that will have been achieved, and then we sort of put a tick on it and it's gone. I think it's something that is ongoing, and we are part of this discussion there. Okay, so I think we can wrap it up here, and maybe Yusuf wrote something. Should I read it out, Yusuf? What you wrote there? Okay, so just to let him take part in this here. So he writes, the devastating effect of climate change is eating our prospects and progress. Without good words in international forums, real action is meager, such as funding for climate change adaptation mitigation for most affected countries like Bangladesh, Maldives, and other African countries. Media must focus on those aspects to make more people friendly. Um, uh, this is true. Media plays a role in understanding the difference between the different parts of the world, the different um, options that people in different countries have. And I think it's something that we can only build on now, bit by bit, by creating this global understanding. Yuri, you wanted to say something there. As a media person, you should actually.
Yuri, I think you should speak at the end because the concluding statement should be from you. And if not from Yuri, it needs to be from Brazil. So please.
Yeah, just I'm going to ask Yusuf if you could record your participation on your cell phone or a camera in a good resolution and send to us. We can use that. Just record your video and send to me, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Later.
Okay.
Okay,
Perfect.
that's all. Thank you.
So, and Heiner, you wanted to?
Yes, just concluding. We had Nicole here, and we are in Babelsberg, that's really advanced and futuristic filmmaking, into how to create real documentaries and imaginary documentaries and use fantasy like virtual and augmented reality to really help us communicate deeper, as the challenges are so gigantic, so gargantuan, that we have to make it solid. And I think we've been today on a very good step on really giving a space to media, but also to the people.
Yeah, and there will be no finite solution to this, but this is an ongoing debate, and media are part of a global debate. And the good thing is, because we have digital media that are cheap to distribute, now we have more and more media in the hands of single people. When I started in media, we had only the megaphone for some people that owned the media. The radio was controlled by the state. Now we have the multiple voices of people, and we can interact on this medium as well on a global scale. So actually, things have changed. They have grown towards solution spaces, and I'm quite positive about our possibilities of taking action using media to interact, combine our ideas, and bring solutions to the table. And of course, then they need to be discussed in the political sphere in order to really become real. But this is something that is out of the power of media. Media have the power of observing and informing and creating debates, but the real decisions are taken by people and in the political field. So I think this is something that has everything has its space, its own space. Yuri, you want to wrap up our discussion? I think we are now at 95 minutes already.
Okay, just to say something for the end. This is our last webinar. Thank you very much for all the participations. We had over the past 2 weeks on 5 webinars, I think over 30, maybe more, 40 people joining and sharing their opinions, and of course, their life with us. And that's going to be summarized, going to be in a documentary for the Rio Plus 30. The Rio Plus 30 conference is not yet set. It was supposed to be in October in Rio, but because we have elections, they don't want to get all this confusion. So they're going to postpone it perhaps to the end of the year. But even though if there's nothing happening in the conference, we're still going to finish the documentary. We're going to release here in Brazil, and then, of course, be available worldwide through the internet. And a nice thing about everything that everybody said here about the media and how we can really interact. I'm just going to give you a few examples of what we are doing in Brazil from our company. That includes this documentary. And Malu, of course, is part of it. We're making a nice documentary about the Amazon River, which is, it started as an adventure. We're going to be the first company traveling the whole Amazon River from the Peru, from the Andes, from the ice, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. Because we had to do this project, we developed Elec Engine. Now, this is something that's I want to share because it's going to transform the life of these Amazon people. We intend to do this whole trip, 5-month trip on the Amazon River, using this electric boats, solar boats. And for that, we got together with a university in Brazil. We have a group of 30 or 40 people, including Germans, former engineers from Mercedes in Brazil. And we're developing this very cheap and very effective electric motor. And we're going to make this available to all the Indians in the Amazons. It's just going to really change their lives because they need this transformation. Now they use gas, and gas is twice as expensive in the Amazon as in the other place in the world. So that's really expensive. So the solar engine for them. So a German outboard engine, just to make a comparison, is 5,000 euros or 5,000 reais, dollars in Brazil. Our engine, our motor is going to be like $300. So it's a lot less, and they're going to be able to do that. So it's a documentary, it's a media, transform the lives of people we be interacting during the recording. Other thing we are doing, it's a production about the São Francisco River, the longest river in Brazil, apart from the Amazon. It's a scientific expedition with 50 engineers or 50 scientists, different areas. We're going to be doing that in October and actually November. Yeah, so we tend to use our power as filmmakers to present solutions, and really, whenever it's possible, even though it's not our role, I know, but we tend to try to solve problems for that community we're documenting, and in a positive way. Of course, it's so contaminated already for so many different reasons, different areas. Everything we can do to try to contribute, and we do that. And we have, of course, United Nations Environment Program, other institutions with us on this projects. So just a word to finish that, whatever we do, even though we're there to document, because I think we filmmakers are like bees. We go place to place, we learn a lot from things we document. Of course, we learn something in Africa that you can apply in South America or vice versa. So it's nice to be like bees. You get an idea in a place, and then you polonize and make it the life better in another community in different place. So just like bees, we have to polonize our good ideas, whatever we see. Thank you very much for everything, people. Thank you for our participation.
And thank you, participants, and thank you, Jörg, for moderating this session.